lady in pink.
Well, good evening. I called to get, I called to start this public forum of the Stratford Town Council. I'm not sure exactly how many speakers we will have, so we will start with 3 minutes to each individual. Our first speaker is Mr. Tom Yates.
Tom Yates, 30 Avery Street, Stratford. Good evening. I'm glad to see that all the seats are filled tonight. We're missing one person, but that's okay. I want to talk about the sewer connection fees. Since 2009, there's been no revenue on the WPCA sewer line fee 4080. I found an article in the Stratford Star dated May 8th, 2014 by Greg Riley, and the title was Ins and Outs of Sewer Fees. In the article, at the time, CAO Steve Nocera said fees collected by the town for connecting to the town sewer system are not included in WPC facility budget. Nocera explained that these fees are accounted for in a sewer revolving fund. So before 2009, money that went for connection fees went on this line item for the WPCA budget 4080. After 2009, the money went into this revolving sewer fund. I'd like to know why, and I'd like to know how much money is in that fund, and who controls it. Is it under control of the sewer commission or the mayor? And another thing, I'd like to urge the council tonight to approve the sewer commission's request for its own legal counsel. I think that's the only way the sewer commission can get answers without being talked down to or whatever from anyone else in this town. Another thing, 425 Hawley Lane. Earlier this year, this council gave a tax abatement on that property, and it was under the assumption that a dialysis center was supposed to go in there. That building is still empty. It's been empty for a good year now, and I don't see no dialysis center in there. And is the developer still going to get that tax abatement? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Yates. Next speaker is Mark Guiliana.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Councilmen, Councilwomen. Congratulations to District 2 and 5. I read the paper yesterday, and I would like to put forward that somebody mentioned that Joe Paul would be maybe nominated or be put up for zoning commissioner, being that we have a spot. I would really like to see that. He's very knowledgeable. He has a lot of good wisdom. We could use that just like you people. You have a busy agenda. The zoning commission has a very busy schedule too. Being that I am a zoning commissioner, I would really like to see that be put forth. And one other thing is, I don't know where we stand with Stratford High School. Maybe Mr. Llewellyn could mention on that. I would really hope to see that we still go through with a project labor agreement, please. It helps. It gets the people in the town there first. And I have a little bit of knowledge of it. My brother wrote some of the verbiage for that, so if you have any questions, I could answer them sometime, but you already have enough people that know enough about it, but I would really hope to have that, right, Mr. Llewellyn? But that's all I have to say. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Mark. Have a good evening. Next speaker is Anthony Nazaro.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Lizardo. I live at 35 Max Harbor Court. I've lived and worked in Stratford for 60 years. My company, NNS Electric, will be celebrating 50 years next year. It supports 25 families, and very proud of it, third generation. I'm also a member of the RDA Commission, and I would like to just touch base on a couple of items. In particular, I don't like the direction the town is going. I believe it's going anti-development. I'd like to limit my comments to just two items at this time. The first is the TOD regulations. Stratford is lucky enough to have a railroad station within our boundaries. Let us take advantage of that fact. As evidenced by 1111, Stratford Avenue, there's a market for apartments. And there's a need for that type of housing. The type of housing will encourage younger people. I think Stratford really needs it. I would ask you to allow the Zoning Commission to evaluate each project for the TOD. We have a regulation in place that has been put together with a tremendous amount of work. Let the process work out and give it a chance. The second is the demolition of Center School. The property is in a unique, pivotal location. It can become the centerpiece of the redevelopment of Stratford Center. The Board of Education has decommissioned the school. The renovation of the school is not feasible. The building should be torn down, whether you want it for a school, whether you want the property for a school, a park, or a centerpiece of the town center. Please don't give back the state money that was the state money for the demolition and the remediation of the school. That would most certainly make all future state funding monies almost never available to us again. Our town employees work very hard to secure this state money. Don't let all that hard work go in vain. I appreciate the opportunity and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lizardo. The next person is Bob Jekyll.
Good evening. I'm here actually to share a little positive news with you guys and provide an update for you guys. I'm here as a representative of the Short Beach Park Commission, as well as the committee chairperson for Sea Scout Ship 101 in Lordship. Earlier this year, Councilman Llewellyn was the chairman of our Short Beach Park Commission. Excuse me?
Oh, can you state your name and
Sorry.
address, please? Sorry.
Bob Jekyll, 175 Twin Oaks Terrace.
Thank you.
Would you like me to start again, or can I pick up where I was? I don't want to. So, earlier this year, Chairman of our Short Beach Park Commission, Mr. Llewellyn, or Councilman Llewellyn, I apologize, brought forth the recommendation that we allow camping for scout units down at Short Beach this past Saturday, November 5th, with the adult leaders. 6 teenage scouts camped at Short Beach near Pavilions 2 and 3 for the first time probably in years, and it was fantastic. And I'd like to thank you all for your positive recommendation for that. I also would like to provide an update for you on where that camp out went and where we are in the progress to turn part of Short Beach Complex into our scout land at Short Beach. Early on Saturday morning, we surveyed the area near Pavilions 2 and 3. There's an area where the brush was disposed of. It's very low profile. It's actually already kind of got its own clearings that would allow for a proper campground, room for tents, fire pits, other necessary areas that you would have for a campground. And over the next few weekends, our scouts will be in the process of laying out where we would like to have a campground down at Short Beach. We have been working already and will continue to work with our park superintendent, asking what the necessary implications are for the town. We will continue to develop the permitting process similar to what is already in effect up at Roosevelt Forest. We would like to bring that down to the shoreline. Another tremendous benefit that I want to make sure I bring to everybody's attention, and not just yours, but to everybody in the audience, is we brought in the professors that are currently working from Sacred Heart University on our living shoreline at Stratford Point with the reef bowls, as well as the Project Limulus, which monitors the migration habits of the horseshoe crabs. One of our scouts is also a Girl Scout. She will be doing the equivalent of what is the Boy Scouts Eagle project. She will be doing it for the Girl Scouts, working with those professors to establish an education and observation station near our campground down at the beach. Not only will it allow for a more efficient and effective during the periods of the late spring and early summer when they do the tagging and different observations they do, it will also provide a much better educational opportunity for area youth to come down and appreciate the the vibrant ecosystems that we have in effect at our Short Beach complex and along the shoreline. My request is that we may have some matters that come up that need your approval. Please help us continue to develop this area as a campground for the kids. I promise you it will continue to be the gem of Stratford when we allow other scout units to come and appreciate the beauty we have down at Short Beach, and the campground will be a big part of it. So I ask you for your help, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for that good report. The next speaker is John Rich.
John Rich, 68 Willow Avenue. First off, of course, congratulations to Mr. Farrington Posner and Mr. Can on your election. It's good to see we do have a full council, including especially representation from the 2nd District, which is a key point to what I wish to speak about tonight, which is item 7.4.1, the Center School Resolution. I have come up here, as other members have come up here over the past, to speak about this project and the fact that we feel that this parking garage is basically an item of infrastructure that is for a transient population. A population that's going to come here, park, get on a train, get off a train, get in their car, and leave. It is not a project that is going to benefit our population and our town at all, not in this location, that's for sure. Infrastructure is something that you should be providing for your citizens here, and that's why one of the key things is schools. Now, just like in real estate, the key is always location, location, location. And the center school location is key. It sits as a school in a area that has a good, tight community. It is bordering on our historic district. As we know, there are multiple dense housing unit applications that are coming in along Ferry Boulevard and within the south end of town, where schools are going to end up needing to be provided as that population grows and brings more children into our area. So I have to tell you that the idea of taking this location and turning it into a concrete and rebar parking garage just is not good. Now, I know the term legacy has been overused a lot lately, but unfortunately it applies to this new seated council as well. What's going to be your legacy, guys? Are you going to be the city of Stratford founded with its central municipal parking garage? Or are you going to be a council that saves a school in a community, in a neighborhood, in a town? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rich. The next speaker is Paula Gabriel Bosey.
Paula Gabriel, 585 East Main Street. Welcome, new council member. I have a concern about our town bell. It hasn't been ringing since at least 2009. And I was told back in 2010 it was only a switch that was turned off, and the bell at Booth and whatever other bells are under the town's jurisdiction. I'm hoping that would be in the budget. They're very important. When I used to live on West Broad Street and people would visit, I mean, the sound was amazing. And bells are rung to the glory of God, and they help protect us. So, like, it's 7 o'clock, there should be like 7 rings. It's also, there's also a mention of it in T.S. Eliot's Portrait of a Lady. Let us take the air in a tobacco trance, admire the monuments, discuss the late events, correct our watches by the public clocks. I also have, I haven't been to the Shakespeare committee meeting in about a month, but it went from the architect being one interest to many interested in that project. I have a concern about building needs. Now, this is a 2010 concern. Predominantly between May 21st to about November 2010, I had met with several out-of-town and maybe out-of-state attorneys in the town, covering the town attorney's office. And while I was waiting, there was a phone call from a close relative of Dan Malloy's, who had made changes to building needs in about 2000. And so I just pray to God that this council does its due diligence to make sure nobody from Stamford's corrupt administration has anything to do with any part of this town. Now, I grew up in Stamford, and I attended one of the initial 1,300 magnet schools in Stamford, Connecticut. And Dan Malloy at the time was living in his brother Bill Malloy's cottage. He was helping him out. They were neighbors. My parents were friends with them, my brother. And almost all of the Chapin area of Stamford attended that magnet school, which is, there's a lawsuit against it. And Dan Malloy was mayor. And the principal at that school was superintendent. And his nieces and nephews went there. I also have been trying to locate the savings and loan scandal, which was before Dan Malloy was elected mayor. And his brother Bill Malloy was arrested for it and charged. The timeline seems kind of off, but
Ms.
yeah.
Gabriel?
So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next speaker is Tom Yem.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Yem, 746 Broad Street in the Historic District. Some beautiful posters my colleague Diane McKenna made about Center School. I want to speak about the TOD meeting that was last week. But
Excuse
first,
me,
I'd like
Mr.
to
Yem, I didn't see your first
Yes.
poster.
I'd like to briefly mention that I'm encouraged that Town Council tonight can appoint my colleague Joe Paul to the Zoning Commission seat that was vacated by my good friend Scott Farrington Posner, who is now sitting on council along with my good friend Greg Can. Congratulations to them both. Also, I'd like to mention, give a shout out to the representative from the Stratford Star newspaper. I don't see the Connecticut Post tonight, but it's important that all of us who follow politics and the issues in Stratford through those newspapers also subscribe. That said, I'm going to read to you something that I sent to the Star earlier today, little fire and brimstone that you're used to. There's no doubting it's been a strange week since November 8th. However, regardless of your views about the outcome, the verdict is clear. Citizens are not buying dog and pony shows from status quo administrations. Nowhere was this more evident than at last week's TOD meeting at Bunnell, one day after the election. Dozens of residents turned out to watch a lame presentation orchestrated by Town Hall on why Center School should be replaced by a multi-story parking garage emptying out onto East Broadway and Main Street. All the usual suspects were there, including those who stand to make a killing if Stratford Center is turned into a metro cog in the Bridgeport to Stamford funneling of supposedly childless commuters that constitutes urban planning these days. And we're supposed to give up our identity as a New England town with 18th century roots and the second largest collection of historic homes in the state, all to comply with edicts from the unelected Greater Bridgeport Regional Council, with whom the mayor consorts. No way. But don't take my word for it. You'd have been proud to see town residents rise one after another in opposition to the absurd parking garage plan. Yes, but also speaking in favor of protecting the real foundation of a post-industrial Stratford, a cultural campus extending from Longbrook Park's WPA buildings through Stratford High's Gothic Revival facade, Sterling House, Perry House, Stratford Library, and Perry House, Baldwin Center, Judson House, and yes, the Phoenix-like Shakespeare Theater poised to rise again as soon as this mayor is shuffled off stage. Don't believe me? Come see it, Act 2, Wednesday, December 7th at Baldwin, 6 p.m. The Harkins Econ team is eager for a second chance to convince a very skeptical public that flipping Center School to developers will somehow make everyone's lives better. If you need a laugh, just wait for the traffic analyst to tell you that Main Street and the railroad underpass will be more better after they've made a mess of it and pocketed the change. They're desperate, all right, but it makes for good theater. Actually, it doesn't. Go anyway, dutifully.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Mark Jarvis.
Good evening and thank you. My name's Mark Jarvis. I own the Lovell Building along with my brother. I'm here about the Center School project. I don't understand why this council has the opportunity to vote against taking and accepting $1.25 million for a building that is not up to code and has a lot of hazardous waste on it. I think no matter what we decide to do, and I'm not saying put a parking garage of 800 cars and all this development, but as a landowner who pays over $60,000 a year in taxes, I think I should have somewhat of say, or at least sit down and enjoy a conversation of what can possibly be done down there. We have business owners that are also struggling at times with some of the parking issues. I don't know what would alleviate the problem, but this definitely would be one solution to it, and we can work together on coming up with a solution instead of fighting one another back or forth. The school has been closed for roughly 20 years. It's been decommissioned for 11. To put something back there that would be able to be utilized would take another $20 million to build, and I don't think that would be fiscally responsible of you to move in that direction. I think there's something else that we can work on and keep the taxes coming down, because right now the taxes are soaring in this town. And I think we all need to work on it, because right now we do not have local neighborhood schools like they're talking about. We bus kids all around this town, and there is no neighborhood school anymore. We did away with that a long time ago. So let's not kid ourselves and pretend it's something that it's not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jarvis. Next speaker is Stephen R Augustus.
I'm Stephen R Augustus. I live at 94 Noble Street. I just want to say it's nice to see 10 elected officials on the town council again. Mr. Can, good to see you up there. And it's really nice to once again have a representative for my district, Scott Farrington Posner. Really happy to see you there. We went too long without a representative from the 2nd District, and now we need to replace Scott as the representative for our district on the Zoning Commission. I'm hearing rumors that this might be tabled tonight, and I urge you not to do that. I know that 2 good people are up for the job. I have great respect for both of them, but I have to put my 2 cents behind Joe Paul. I think that Scott has really looked at this hard as who his replacement should be, and I think that that should carry some weight. I'd love to see Joe on zoning. We've got a lot coming up with zoning. The TOD and Center School, this is obviously a big subject, and there's a lot to it. I like the idea of sitting down and discussing things with business leaders and owners of the businesses in the center to try to figure out what's best. I can't imagine how many people are going to pay to park in a parking garage and then walk almost 2 blocks to get to the businesses in the center, so I don't think that a parking garage on Sutton Avenue will be a positive thing. I also have to say that I was at the TOD meeting, and several representatives from the town said that there's no plan for a parking garage. That's just something that got put in the published plan because he had to put something there. I tend not to believe them. When the talk about selling the water treatment plant first came up, they said, no, that's just one of many options we're looking at. Several weeks later, the deal was signed. Speaking of the water treatment plant, I am really hoping you move forward and hire a separate counsel for the WPCA. The state laws are very clear that money that is brought in from the WPCAs have to be spent on sewers and related matters, not on rent, which now who knows if in fact the WPCA is paying rent on land they already own. I heard that mentioned. The town attorney has given opinions. That's all it is an opinion, that you can't hire this attorney. I think that the town attorneys in Stratford have a bad track record, and I would love to see a separate attorney representing the WPCA. And also I see that Shakespeare, that we're going to get a report from the subcommittee tonight. I'm really happy about that. I hope things can move forward, and that's the best thing that can happen to this town is if we do something positive with the theater. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Augustus. The next speaker is Ann Eisinger.
Good evening. My name is Ann Eisinger. I live at 90 Eaton Street, and I vote in the 5th District. I, too, have come to endorse Joe Paul for the, what's he going to do?
Zoning.
Right. Tell me again.
Zoning.
Oh, right, zoning. I knew what it was, I just couldn't think of it for the moment, sorry. Anyway, Mr. Paul has been very active in town, in all town, oh dear. Anyway, he's a man that knows his way around the books and how to manage things. And it is very important that we fill the seat that was vacant by Mr. Posner. And we have been sort of flying with half a wing here in the town. We lost our councilman in the 5th District, and fortunately he has been replaced now by Mr. Khan, and we are all very happy about that, but we had to wait a few months for that to happen, and the same with Mr. Posner, that seat was vacant also. So I did hear that perhaps this was going to be put off, but I think it's very important that this gets done because there is so much happening in the 2nd District, and we need somebody to oversee it, and that is my feeling. Also, I'd like to endorse what Mr. Yem said, and so I guess that's about it for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Eisinger. The next person is Christine Rodney.
Christine Rodney, 2320 Elm Street. I'm just here to support the appointment of Joe Paul to the Zoning Commission for my district, District 2. Well, there's a lot going on in my district, and I really feel it's critical that we have somebody representing us on the Zoning Commission. Joe has been around town for many years. He's been involved in a lot of the things that are going on in Stratford, and I think he's very knowledgeable about the zoning issues. And so I would urge you to move forward on that appointment tonight. I also would like to say that I'm strongly opposed to having a parking garage in Stratford Center. But everybody that supports it doesn't live near us. They don't know what we have to go through on a daily basis getting onto Main Street. And an additional 700 cars pouring onto Main Street will not be solved by a traffic light, I assure you. So I really hope that the council, you know, comes to Stratford Center at 5 o'clock and sees what it's like and realizes that this will be for, as the other gentleman said, people from out of town will come and use the parking garage, and then they will leave and they will go home, because that's what most commuters do. They're in a hurry to get home to their family, they got to make dinner, etc. So I think also that people don't like to pay for parking because they park up and down my street. I had to actually get a no parking sign because people were parking overnight in front of my house 2 and 3 days at a time, and nobody could come to my house and park in front of my house because the commuters line the street. And I think they're not particularly interested in paying for parking. So, and certainly 700 is like a very huge number of cars. And I can't imagine who would be filling that up. So I hope you will think about the impact of something like that on a neighborhood. Yes, it's the historic district, but you know, any neighborhood would be impacted. And I think a lot of the people that support it, like the woman who wrote the grant, she lives several blocks away. It will not have an impact on her. It will not have an impact on most of the people in Stratford unless they have to drive home back and forth down Main Street, which sometimes it's backed up to St. James. And when I try to get onto Main Street, my light's green, the light down there is red, so nobody's moving. I can't even get out to make the turn. You know, I just got to get out there and block them from cutting me off. So I think it's dangerous and it's unfair to the residents there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodney. The next person is Linda Palermo. And then after Linda, there's Ed Goodrich.
Good evening, Council. Linda Palermo, 46 Vault Place. First and foremost, congratulations, Mr. Posner. Congratulations, Mr. Can. I know you're here. I know you're going to do a good job, and you're going to drive everything home so things will be right. Congratulations. With regard to filling the post that Mr. Posner vacated with the victory, I support Paul Joy. I believe he will do an excellent job. I hope you move forward on that appointment today. With regard to ADA compliance, I did some research. You're right. It is compliant inside the building. There is a section of the ADA that speaks about the exterior of the building. There are no handrails to hold on if you have to walk down that big, long hill. There are no wooden planks there for steps, so you are not in compliance. Signs aren't going to help you. I also heard from my health insurance carrier today. They've asked me to name the party where this accident happened. So, Town of Stratford, the Town Attorney's Office will be put on that list. I will provide them with the same disclosure I gave the Town Attorney's Office. I hope that they'll be prudent because I need some extra medical attention. I hope that moves forward. And with that, I also hope to move forward and make that area compliant with what the ADA says we must have. Thank you very much. And there again, good luck, fellas.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Palermo. Ed Goodrich? And then after Mr. Goodrich is Gerald Gray.
Good evening, Council. Edward Goodrich, 2320 Elm Street. Again, congratulations, Scott and Greg, joining the council. This is great. Looking forward to working with them and everybody else here and solving problems, because that's what we do, and we're going to knuckle down. For the record, before I forget, I had a lot of notes that I might have to look down on before I get off. I think maybe everyone should take a look at the Parsons Center over in Milford. They did a reuse of Milford High School back then. I was over there today. I know the town got together and they had a reuse for that building for a public use. Okay, and also before I get off, I'd like to support the leadership of Joe Paul. If there's an appointment there, I think that's a good leadership. He came out. We have some questions about the TOD, and I think there's a lot of development going on in our town, and that's a good thing, but it's going to be done correctly, and it should be smart growth. The town has to have a balance. We just can't build apartments, okay? It is something that we have to do, and I don't have to lecture everybody about this, but everybody that owns a house here in town, your value is tied into your educational system. We have to stop ignoring that. And this is where you have to take a real good look at Center School, because when you go up on Zillow, when you look at the house values and you look at the ratings that the Stratford school systems get, it's much lower than all the surrounding towns, save Bridgeport. So we have to take a step back and look at the town as a whole to see how we're going to protect ourselves from this. And you know, when you're running out of space at schools, we should examine how that Board of Ed was doing everything when they're filling up and putting portables in a thing. And are we running out of space? And this is another thing that we have to take a look at in town. I mean, we turn our backs to an asset. I mean, we wanted to sell the WPCA. We got Shakespeare Theater with 14 acres just sitting there that could be utilized. That's been sitting there. That's another asset. Okay, our school system, Center School. So what do we do with an asset? Okay, and then will the town move forward when we start polishing up, and we're going to become part of Fairfield County, and to get our numbers up, because I did take a look at those school scores, and I did take a look at those housing values, and they're much different. So if somebody wants to raise a family and they're going to go on Zillow to find out where they're going to move to, we got to be right there. We can't be second best. You know, we got to play the game just like everybody else is playing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ed. Then Gerald Gray is the next speaker.
Good evening, Council. Gerald Gray of 29 Shoreline Drive here in Stratford. I have, through the summer to present, been attending and testifying at these monthly Stratford Town Council public forums. I have spoken mostly to the topic of the malfeasance, dirty politics, and deeply entrenched corruption that I have come to believe so malignantly contaminate and infect Stratford. Such corruption and contamination which my mother, Dolores Gray, and I came to so horrifically learn of through our personal experience of being so preyed upon and victimized by the power owners of Stratford. I have repeatedly informed you here of how Stratford Town Attorney Kevin Kelly egregiously submitted to his close, longtime political and financial crony, F. Paul Kermay, Stratford's almost 4-decade probate judge, an application to King Kermay for a conservatorship of assets to be sentenced by Kermay upon my mother. As I have repeatedly informed this venue these past months, this was the first step in my medically diagnosed, capable, and competent, in no need of a conservator, Florida domiciliary mother, being stripped of all of her civil rights and the seizure of her entire multi-million-dollar body of assets, with all her assets, homes, properties, etc., being probate court seized and redistributed into the pockets of these predators via IRA, which is involuntary redistribution of assets, as is conducted for payment for their billings to my mother's assets for committing these unconscionable crimes against her. As my mother is also stripped of all of her civil rights, she is permanently sentenced to involuntary solitary confinement captivity in the house of the violent, disowned son against whom she had gotten an attorney-created order of protection restraining order, and whom she regarded as a monster with whom she never ever wanted any contact. My mother is suffering this unconscionable horror because of who and what the power owners of the town of Stratford are. Every week I submit to Stratford Star a letter speaking to such town of Stratford issues. They have come to be similar in content to the very astute and accurate submissions that I see made by George Mulligan, except that, of course, mine are submitted by an actual present-time victim who is naming names and telling what Stratford power wielders have done and are doing. Except for one publication of one of my most benign letters, the Star Weekly denies publication of my submissions. In looking for possible reasons, I recently saw that the most recent accounting of the grossly bloated Stratford budget not only pays the Stratford Star and its parent company many tens of thousands of dollars, but I also viewed the amounts of the millions of dollars paid to attorneys representing the town and the town's public servants and the Stratford Police Department for their actions against its residents. Indeed, in a piece printed just yesterday in the Connecticut Post, John Bergeson quotes the two new council members, Can and Farrington Posner, in their stating of their concern with how much Stratford pays attorneys, indicating that the attorneys working at the behest of town of Stratford against its citizens are paid 4 times the amount of revenues than a municipality the size of Stratford validity spends on such counsel. And as George has been pointing this out for years, it still continues unabated as these attorneys, who are also Stratford politicos, become millionaires many times over on the backs of Stratford resident prey. I have spoken to you of the vile municipal predation being perpetrated by town of Stratford upon its prey victims, and which is being conducted by and via the hands of attorneys working for the town, working by and via and within the vehicles of the commissions and agencies and various departments of town of Stratford.
Okay, Ms. Gray, if you could finish up, please.
Okay,
Thank you.
As homes and properties and assets are being stolen by this town through Stratford probate, through Stratford Senior Services at Baldwin, through Stratford Health Department, via fabricated blight and hoarding liens, via eminent domain. Town of Stratford is represented in the Bridgeport Foreclosure Court each week as Stratford property is taken from its residents, is represented by these attorneys.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker is, I don't know the first name, the last name is Reed at 77 Griffin Street. There was no first name. D. Reed? Nope. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, next speaker is Walter M. Kunis.
I made it. Walter P. Rimkunis, 425 Second Avenue. 62 years ago, after completing my two-year duty overseas, I came home. One of the first things I did, I came to Stratford and I built a home. Nice, quiet little place, beautiful city, town. Everybody knew everybody, and the place was nice. Where, oh, where is my town gone? It's not here anymore. It's gone. We have gone commercial. As one of the people spoke at a presentation by the builders proposed at Parapco, we're going to be the second Stamford. I don't want that. That's not my house. That's not what I came here for. You know, I just wondered how many of these people that are on the various commissions within town take the time to read the perspectives that are given out. One in particular got me. I got the original perspective here by the Point Stratford renewal. It seems every time you turn around, some outside builder or stuff, they want to come in and make a new zoning laws. We started off with the TOD. Our buildings went from 3 floors to 4 floors, 49 feet. Now, we get the Stratford Point renewal on the revision, the first edition. And what do I see on page 5? I don't think the ones you have is up to date. Or is up to date, they changed their mind. But I'm going to read. Development shall not include any building that exceeds 8 stories or 90 feet in height. They would still, that's 8 floors. Out there at the AFCO property, it's going to stand out like another sore thumb. We don't need it, it's not Stratford. I'll go quickly. You got another thing on your list? Center School. Everybody says we don't need it. It was in the paper the other day. We got to make parking over there at the Honey Spot School because we don't have enough parking at the school because there's too much. Number 3, why are we wasting the time to do that? Number 4, we better get down and do something about that attorney business at WPCA. I say yes, we need it. We got to get out of the town control of everything here. It is not right. One other thing, I won't bother, and I'll get out of here. How much money is it going to cost us for a temporary ice skating rink? I haven't seen any figures. It looks nice, everybody's happy. How many times is that going to be used up there to spend that money? Who's going to run it? How many people are going to be devoted there to clean it, watch it, supervise it on there? You're not going to get it. I got one more, but I can't remember.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rimkunis, for coming out. The next person is Carolyn McLean Parisi.
Hi, good evening. Carolyn Mclean. My maiden name is Parisi, 217 First Avenue. On March 14th of this year, Beth DePonte added an agenda, added to the agenda for a dedication at Greg Ackley Memorial Park gazebo. Many of you do not know where Greg Ackley Park is, and that there's a history and a story that is part of the park and gazebo. But in March, Beth obviously did not want any of you to know this, and all of you trusted her intentions for this agenda item. What she also did not tell you is that this was all a premeditated plan to use taxpayer dollars to benefit a select group of her donors in District 1 and Lordship section of Stratford for a water installation in this park. This project was requested on February 11th, 2016 by Beth DePonte and approved by Maurice McCarthy on February 16th. That's a remarkable approval process when taxpayer dollars are being spent. Since my numerous Freedom of Information requests to Beth DePonte had gone completely unanswered regarding the cost of to Stratford taxpayers, I took the liberty to talk to several companies who do this type of work, including Aquarian, to get an understanding of what this project cost would be. For 2 roads open to run pipe on Stratford Road and Prospect, which would include patching and paving, about $20,000. Water pipe, fake rock installation, water fountain, spigot, water meter, and cement pad, about $10,000. So this little favor is costing the Stratford taxpayers about $35,000 with additional water and meter charges per year. All of this being planned and executed while Bette DePonte is saying F the South End in June of 2016, and during the course of Wally requesting some equal relief to his community for the kids to have a little water pad. It was Bette DePonte who decided a water installation would better serve hanging plants and lordship than kids in the South End. Bette's comments in June reveal a bigotry that is totally unacceptable in Stratford, particularly from a council member. She has also displayed through her actions favoritism to select members of her district. This blatant misappropriation of funds at taxpayers' expense is inexcusable. Bette DePonte should step down immediately as chair of Stratford, but since we know she will not do that, you as a committee should vote tonight to have her removed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Parisi. The next person to speak is Mark Scheck.
Mark Scheck, 161 Birdseye Street. I'll actually start with something nice and easy. PAC 74 in District 1. We're in our second year. It's actually growing after a hiatus of many, many years. So that's actually a really awesome thing. Finally, some light in Stratford. I was also at the TOD meeting, as was, a few of the counselors. I thought it was kind of a joke. They compared us to Lowell, Mass, which has UMass Lowell there. They have a vibrant tech scene. They're going to be like, we're going to be like Lowell. No, we're not. They have a canal. They have a national park. It's ridiculous to think we're going to be like Lowell, Mass. They should be fired for even saying something like that. I'm also a large landlord. I have many apartments. I have 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms. It's naive to think that people will not have children in a 1-bedroom apartment. You could come to me in Bridgeport and I'll show you. Let's see, what else do I have? The Greg Ackley Park, yes. What can we say? I can't say anything after the last one. And we should be like Stratford, Ontario, instead of Stratford, Connecticut. There should be a vibrant theater scene here. We should have pubs. We should have things supporting our economy. But we don't, and it's ridiculous. And I know it's not on you guys per se for the last year, but what was on you guys was the budget. Well, except for like Tina and some other people that voted against it. But you voted for it, and that's ridiculous. And I think that's all I have. So I started positive and ended negative. So anyway, thank you. And also to the veterans, happy Veterans Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person to speak is Tina Manus.
Tina M. Manus, 315 Fox Hill Road, formerly 238 P Street, formerly Liberty Street in Stratford. I'm coming before you tonight to speak with you about one issue that is not on the agenda. The issue is the Bunnell Fieldhouse. I am the treasurer of the Bunnell Bulldog Alumni Club. We are a nonprofit organization and not allowed to influence legislation. We understand our role. However, I'm coming to you as a citizen and as a member of that club that has been supporting our boys football team, especially this year, to bring to your attention that currently our boys football team is in position to go to states for the first time in several years. Our team is fighting really hard under really deplorable fieldhouse circumstances. We've been dealing with the fieldhouse for a while. We've been advocating for it and talking about all the students from all over town who use this fieldhouse. Just to put it in a little bit more perspective for you, many of the students who use our fieldhouse don't live anywhere near school for all of our sports teams. They spend their practice time at Johnson Field because the boys live there, and many are getting rides back and forth. So can you imagine not being able to shower in a really great facility, or not being able to change because things don't feel really clean or nice? So I want you to keep that in mind, that this is their home away from home. This is our soccer teams, our football teams, home away from home. And also it's a source of pride when away teams come to us and they want to see what we've got. It's a source of intimidation a little bit. You know, if you have a really nice facility, they look at our fields, but if you go in the field house, it's like, oh, what's going on in there? So we did some Band-Aids, and that was great, but I'm wondering if I can get an update as to where we stand and how much sooner the boys and girls at Bunnell will have to wait for that field house. On another note, I do want to share that my sentiments are shared with Bob DiLorenzo. He lives in District 6 on Shepherd Street. He, again, is not very political and just volunteers his time to help with these boys. He is absolutely adamant that this needs to happen. We have focused our efforts on providing pizza days and support for our team and really giving the kids the feel-good stuff that's not in the Board of Ed budget, that are the little things that matter. And I believe that that investment from our donors and from that has really led to this, with the leadership of the great head coach that's there, and the support of the community has really led them to states this year and will lead them beyond. So we really need the town to pick up your end of the bargain and provide these kids their little hotel away from home so that they can change and shower and do all the things that they need to do. The quick fix is good for this year, but we promised them something, and I just want to know where we stand and if we can get this done for our students. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And that ends the public forum. The town council meeting starts at 8. Thank you. 7:45.